Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the process where we're going to be getting buckets for the December 14th, 2016 NBA slate. My name is Stephen Porter. You can follow me on Twitter at Stephen Porter Jr. We've got a wild 10-game NBA slate tonight. I want to try to hit on it as quickly as possible because we could probably spend an hour talking about everything that really needs to be touched on today. So let's dive right in. Highest total and probably the most attractive overall game on the night and maybe even of the entire season is the Los Angeles Lakers on the road to face the Brooklyn Nets. The Nets are 1.5-point favorites here. Total is 229.5. Both these teams are terrible on defense, posting two of the three worst defensive ratings in the league, close to 110 points per 100 possessions. Brooklyn's one of the fastest teams in the league. Los Angeles is right behind them. There should be a ton of possessions, some turnovers. Both these teams will turn the ball over. Neither of them are particularly good on the glass, so there's definitely some offensive rebound chances here. Neither offense is that great, but they're certainly going to trend up in efficiency given the matchup here. I'm going to start on the Brooklyn side of the ball. I definitely like Brooklyn to win this game. I touched on last time. I think Jeremy Lin back in the lineup actually really helps these guys. Lin gets kind of a bad rap, but I think he's a pretty good basketball player. He can definitely score the basketball. He is not the best athlete when it comes to defense, but I think he makes up for it a little bit with the anticipation and having himself in the right spots at the right times. And I mean, he's consistently posted a positive net rating this year. He was easily the best plus minus of any of the Brooklyn guys against Houston in the last game, and they posted some pretty solid defensive ratings, which I posted on my Twitter account. I mean, definitely something I want to look at. It's causing me a little hesitation when targeting the Laker guys to see how well that Brooklyn played. I think Brooklyn giving up the 1.5 points is a pretty solid bet here. I think they should win this game and probably by more than two. So definitely more interested in Brooklyn guys than I am Los Angeles guys. Problem with Brooklyn is that the rotations in minutes in shots are going to be kind of hectic here. I think the one guy that we can feel good about is Brook Lopez. Posted a 31.7% usage rate in the last game. Would expect that to be over 30. Great matchup. Mozgov's not going to slow him down. I wouldn't even be surprised to see him kick Mozgov off the floor because of how well he plays away from the rim. And then they will probably slide Julius Randle over to the 5 to check him. I'm not worried about that at all. I think Brook Lopez is a really strong play. Cash or tournaments, only 6.8K on Draftkings. That's pretty cheap here. I think he could be the guy that kind of closes this matchup out. If it's close, I think he could probably score 30 real points here. Mentioned how Los Angeles isn't the best team on the boards. I mean, they're not terrible. They're about a 50% rebounding rate, but Brook could definitely see like 6 to 8 rebounds here. I think he could see 3, 4, maybe even 5 assists, block a couple shots. In the first matchup between these teams this year, he put up 25 shots, only hit 40% of them, which is actually, I might expect more efficiency from him in this matchup. So, I mean, I think he could get up to like 60 fantasy points. He put up a 30 and 10 line with 3 dimes and 3 blocks in the first matchup. And I think he's a really, really strong target here. Might go a little overlooked with how much value is out there on the slate. So, definitely a strong cash and or tournament play. From there, it gets a little more, a little tougher to peg with who's going to be seeing the shots in the minutes. Isaiah Whitehead saw a 21.2% usage rate in the last game. I don't think he is like the worst punt. Probably not a cash game play, but he's going to be just not owned at all. And it's a really good matchup. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him get up to like 25, maybe even 30 DraftKings points in this game. So if maybe some of the other cheap guards fail and Whitehead puts up like a 28-30 DraftKings point game, and you have them at like 1% ownership at 3.2K, that's a really good way to get a leg up on the field in a tournament. Like I said, there's probably just stronger cash game punts at the guard spot, but I definitely think he's got a little bit of a ceiling here in this matchup. I think he's a pretty good player too. wasn't making any shots earlier in the year, but he has definitely come on recently. And I definitely think he's a good defender. So if he can prove himself worthy on the offensive end, I mean, he could probably see like 25, 28 minutes in this spot and put up like a Draftkings point per minute. So I mean, he's a guy worth mentioning. Sean Kilpatrick is probably too expensive. I mean, I love the matchup for him. 5.1K is cheap, but I don't know. It's tough. I mean, he's definitely a tournament target, and if you really felt good about him in cash games, I could see it. But I'm just a little bit worried with Jeremy Lin coming back and maybe putting his usage down a little bit. He was only 22.7 in the last game, but I mean his efficiency should be really good against the Lakers. So definitely got a target. I don't think I'm going to play him in cash games, but definitely a tournament target. Lin, same kind of thing, tournament target for sure. If we could like get confirmation on the fact that he played like 28 to 30 minutes in this game, I'd feel really good about rolling him, but he only saw 20 minutes in the last game. Did put up 1.4 DraftKings points per minute on a 20.6% usage. So that's pretty impressive and definitely something to keep an eye on. He's a guy we want to target, and if, like I said, if we get 30 minutes out of him, I think he could get to like 40 DraftKings points. So definitely a guy I'd be interested in targeting. In the matchup if we knew he was going to play more. Trevor Booker definitely bears mentioning in this spot. Great matchup for him. Kind of mention every time that anytime there's an opportunity for him to hit the glass, he could see an uptick in usage. Played 28 minutes in the first matchup between these two teams and saw 10 rebounds. Put up 35 DraftKings points. If he gives you 35 DraftKings points tonight, you're probably going to be pretty happy with it. Definitely think he's in play, cash or tournaments for sure. I don't have him right now, but I mean, I totally understand doing it. I definitely have some tournament stacks with this game though, with him included. So that's pretty much it. I think Brook Lopez is definitely the strongest target. I think Whitehead is sneaky. Lynn is definitely sneaky if he's going to see more minutes. Trevor Booker, definitely a cash or tournament play. And Sean Kilpatrick is more of a tournament play. I'm not really interested in Joe Harris. Joe Harris has kind of been trending up with the minutes and everything, but I'm not too interested in him in this matchup. There's just probably better punts at the shooting guard spot. Bringing it back on the other side with the Lakers, I think Julius Randle is probably the strongest target. Kind of mentioned how Brooklyn's terrible on the boards. Randle saw an absolute monster game. The last time these two teams played, he triple-doubled, had 17 points, 14 rebounds, 10 assists. I mean, I think that's certainly in the range of outcomes again in this game. Kind of touched on how Timofey Mozgov doesn't really match up very well. So Randle's minutes could definitely tick up here a bit. I mean, I think he could see like 32, maybe even 34. And I think he's a good candidate for like 1.5 DraftKings points per minute. So if he sees 34, I mean, I think 50 DraftKings points is definitely in the range of outcomes for him tonight. He's been really frustrating me here lately because he's not playing incredibly efficient basketball. But hopefully he can get going on the right track here in this matchup. Definitely think he's a very strong cash and or tournament play. Great stack with Brook Lopez if you want to stack the two of them in tournaments and get yourself a little bit of upside. Like I said, I think these guys might go a little under-owned because of all the rest that's happening on this slate. So I definitely want a big chunk of these guys in tournament games just in case their ownership is a little lower in a game that could see like legitimately like 240, 250 points. So really interested in these guys. I'm not really interested in anybody else on the Lakers side. Lou Williams is always interesting as a tournament play, but with D'Angelo Russell coming back, I don't think his usage is going to be high enough to kind of pay it off at the price point. Definitely not a cash game play for me at all. But I could see running him in a game stack as a guy that could see like a 30+% usage rate and really high efficiency in like 28 minutes. But I'm not really playing him here, even though it's a great matchup. I think D'Angelo Russell is interesting. He's kind of in the same category as Lynn, where he's coming off of an injury. I don't know what to expect with his minutes, but if he would trend up towards like 30 minutes, in this super cake matchup. I think he could give you like 40 to 45 DraftKings points. He put up a 56 DraftKings point performance in the first time these teams met, but he was healthy and he played 31 minutes. So if we get any kind of confirmation that he's going to be the leash is going to be extended a little bit with him in terms of minutes, I definitely think he's a really strong tournament target at the very least. Probably won't play him in cash games, but if you felt really good about it, I could understand why, and I could definitely see playing him because the matchup's just so juicy. So I think you could probably play like Randall and D'Angelo, and then bring it back on the other side with like Brook Lopez and Booker, or Brook Lopez and Lynn. If we got confirmation that Lynn and Russell would play a little bit more, I'm not too interested in Deng. I know Deng's been playing well. He's still pretty cheap, only 4K, which is kind of attractive given the matchup, but I think his minutes are a little bit in question here. I don't really know where they're going to be, even though he's been up averaging almost about 30 over the last 3 games. So definitely a tournament play at the very least. I don't think I can trust him in cash games. I think there's better punts, but I could see working him in there. And I'm not going to play Clarkson. I'm not going to play any of these other guys from the Lakers. So that'll do it for me for that game. But like I said, I really want a big piece of that game because I think it'll have the most points scored on the slate, maybe by like 30 points. I mean, I could see literally there being like 240 points in this game and then nobody else getting over like 215 on the slate. So I think this is a really juicy game, and one that you definitely want to have a piece of when making tournament and or cash rosters. Going on to the next game on the slate, we've got the Sacramento Kings traveling to visit the Houston Rockets. Rockets are 13-point favorites. Totals 212.5. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of value here on Sacramento's side of the ball with DeMarcus Cousins and Rudy Gay not going to play in this matchup. I think the easiest target here is going to be Costa Koufos. I think he probably plays 30 plus minutes. I mean, he's always been a guy that whenever DeMarcus Cousins doesn't play, we want to target Costa Koufos. He's only 3.1K on DraftKings. I think he is a pretty easy click in cash games for sure, and tournament games, because I think it's a reasonable projection for him to get to like 30 DraftKings points, and that's obviously somebody you're going to have on all of your rosters. I think double with a couple defensive statistics is certainly in play, and I think he's got some upside for like 40-ish points here. And if a guy is going to score 40 points at 3.1K, you're not going to be winning anything without him on your roster. So Costa Koufos is definitely a guy that I'm looking to have almost like 100% exposure to tonight. The only place I could maybe see fading him is on FanDuel, where you can only play one center, and there's definitely some really attractive center plays on the slate. So Costa Koufos, a guy that I especially think on DraftKings, where you can play multiple centers, just get him in there. He's probably going to get it done for you tonight. A guy that you don't want to go into the night fading. Omri Caspi is probably the next guy to look at here. I'm not really looking too hard at all of the kind of usage rates and everything for all these guys off, because I think this is more of like, I think the rotations and the usage here are going to be a little different from maybe what we've seen in the past. I mean, this is a different coach. We haven't seen all of these guys off the court yet so far this year, so I think we kind of have to build our projections just based on what we can kind of expect to see from like a matchup and game flow perspective. So I think that we'll see a lot of Darren Collison and Costa Koufos in the pick and roll. Darren Collison's pretty solid in the pick and roll. He can definitely shoot, pretty strong shooter from the mid range, and he is lightning quick. He can definitely get to the rim. Pretty willing passer. Costa Koufos is pretty good in the pick and roll too. I mean, I like him offensively from like 10 feet and in. He can really get it done. So I like both of them a lot. A little hesitant on Collison just because you're going to see the individual matchup with Beverly. But I mean, I think he projects to play like 36, at least 33, and probably closer to like 36 minutes in this matchup. I mean, he only needs 32 DraftKings points to get you there, and I think that's a reasonable expectation. So I certainly think he's in play for cash games. I don't have him right now just because I'm comfortable paying up to some other guys. And like I said, he's the one guy on the Sacramento roster that I'm hesitant to use, but I definitely see like a 40 to 45 point ceiling here, and I can't see him scoring any less than like 25 points. So I really think he's a strong play in cash or tournaments. Omri Caspi was the guy I touched on. Only 4.4K. He's small forward and power forward eligible. I think he's a really strong play here. Not sure what their starting lineup's going to look like. They might start Kufos and Willie Cauley-Stein, but I actually think it's more likely that maybe they bring Matt Barnes back and play Matt Barnes and Caspi at the 3 and 4. I think that would probably be a better individual matchup with Ariza and Anderson. Not sure which of them would see the 4. Probably Caspi. I would think that Jaeger would want to put Matt Barnes on Ariza and Caspi on Ryan Anderson. But it's tough to tell. But whoever matches up with Ryan Anderson, we definitely want a piece of because he's always a guy that we want to target. So Caspi, I think, is going to play at least 30 minutes, ceiling of up to like 36 because there's so many minutes and shots to go around here. He can play. I mentioned he can play the 3 and the 4. I think he's definitely going to see low to mid 30s minutes here. Should see some efficiency. Only needs 27 Draftkings points to pay it off. I think that's like a reasonable floor projection for him here. So he's definitely a guy I'm locking into most of my rosters. I'm starting with him and Costa Kufos. Collison, if I can get there, if it makes sense, would be the next guy I want to target. Mention Matt Barnes. Not sure what he's going to do. He's got that lawsuit or that nightclub incident that's kind of affecting his play minutes. So not sure what to expect from him. Don't think he's a cash play, but I think he's an awesome tournament play because if he plays, he's only 3.7K. He could have a huge monster game here. So if we get confirmation that he's playing, he's definitely a guy I want to sprinkle in tournaments, but I don't think you can trust him in cash games. Garrett Temple and Anthony Tolliver are guys that'll probably see uptick in minutes and shots, but just not guys I really want to target. Temple is a better real life player than he is a fantasy player. Got to know him pretty well playing for the Wizards over the last couple of years, and he's just not a guy I'm really looking to target. I think I'd rather play like Isaiah Whitehead over him. I know I'd rather play like Kay Felder, Jordan McRae, and J.R. Smith and Shumpert, like all those guys. I'd just rather play over Temple. I think Temple is maybe a little bit of a trap because he's not really like a high usage player. More like a ball handler, pass it to the open guy, and play defense kind of player. So I'm not too interested in him at all. Same thing with Tolliver. Not sure what we're going to see out of him with minutes. I mean, Tolliver could like just pop off and hit like 6 threes or something like that and make value. We've seen him kind of do that before where nobody plays him and then he kind of randomly plays and explodes, but I'm not going to use him at all. And then the last guy to mention is Ty Lawson. I think Ty Lawson could see a big uptick in minutes here. At the 1 and 2, Houston will play pretty small. They'll play some 3-guard lineups probably with like Beverly Gordon and Harden. So I think Ty Lawson could play like 30 minutes here. The problem I have with Ty Lawson is that he sucks. Not very good. Not a guy I ever want to target, but I mean, he is super cheap. Don't think he'll be very highly owned, and I do see like a 30 to 35 point ceiling in this matchup. So I mean, he's a guy that I guess you could play in tournaments. I probably just won't use him at all just because I'm kind of biased against him. I don't think he's very good. He's not a guy I ever want to roster, but I do see some upside for him. So from Sacramento, for me, it's pretty much Costa Kufos, Omri Caspi, Darren Collison in cash or tournaments, and then I like Lawson and Matt Barnes if he plays for sure, kind of off the other guys. Bringing it back on the other side of the ball, I really wanted to play James Harden today, but I don't know that Sacramento competes. I mean, I think there's definitely are competitive in this game because I mean these guys are NBA players. They've played and they've played well before. I mean we've seen it at least. Not as confident in Cleveland competing tonight, but we'll get to that later. But we've seen Cosby, Lawson, I guess, and Matt Barnes. I mean these guys have all been productive. That great defensively in the letdown game where they kind of look past, don't give their best effort with all of Sacramento's main guys. I definitely think there's reasonable expectation that this game could be closer than the 13-point spread would suggest. So I definitely think Harden is at least a tournament play in a stack with these guys, because if these guys play well and keep it close, Harden could definitely pop off tonight and kind of extend the ceiling a little bit to like 75, 80 DraftKings points. Don't know how owned he'll be. Could still be pretty popular given how much value there is on the slate, and it's kind of hard to play Westbrook, and DeMarcus isn't playing tonight, but I definitely think he's at least a tournament target. I could see playing him in cash games just because there's so much value, but I'm not going to do that. I think it makes more sense to go a little more balanced tonight, because there's definitely some guys I think that could exceed the 6x salary expectation that we have for value on DraftKings. So not going to play hard in cash games. I could see it in the tournament. If you really want to do it with all the value, I could understand that. Eric Gordon's pretty interesting. Saw 33% usage in the last game. I think if Harden's usage trends down because Houston's ahead by 20 to 25 points, I think Gordon's could trend up a little bit. Don't think I want to use him in a cash game just because I think there's better values, but I mean, I can understand playing him. Pat Beverly's a guy I've been playing a lot recently. His price is kind of getting up to the point where I don't love him, and I think I would definitely play Darren Collison over him at the same price point. I guess you could use him in a tournament, but I'm not too into him. I'm kind of off of Houston in general at their price points. Don't really like Capella. I'm playing Kufos. Ariza is a guy that I could maybe get into in tournament games because we've seen Wings just totally roast Sacramento. But again, I don't want to necessarily incorporate that into the handicap because this is just a totally different situation, different players. Him in a tournament game, but I'm not going to play him in a cash game. I do think there's a ceiling there. Kind of over in the matchup. I think Ariza Ryan Anderson in tournaments for me, and I don't see any cash plays here. Allison and Caspi, and then bring it back with Harden, or those three guys and then bring it back with going on to the next game here with the Wizards and Hornets. The Hornets are on the road to face the Wizards. This is a pretty juicy. So there should be some. I think John. Damn it. Internet, don't do this to me. Okay, so John Wall, I'm pretty interested in. He's brought his price down to 8.6K. I'm not concerned with targeting Charlotte. It's a close game. It's a tight spread. I'm really into him. Price point, I think he's a good cash play. I think he's a good tournament play. He was 37% in the last game. I mean, he's pretty much a lock to be at least 30. We know who it's going to be for Washington. It's going to be Wall. It's going to be Beal. Beal was over 30 in the last game too. I think they're both interesting cash and/or tournament plays, and I'm pretty much not interested at all in anybody else. Markieff, Gortat, and Otto all bear mentioning, but I can't trust their usage on any given night. And then Oubre is still interesting to me. His price is coming up though, and it's kind of tough to peg his usage rate on any given night. But I mentioned the last time out how I really like he's definitely going to be playing minutes. He's got to be out there to play defense, so he's locked into at least 25 minutes with a ceiling of 30. He's going to rebound. He's been rebounding at a pretty good rate for a 2-3 combo. He's going to play defense. He can get steals and blocks, and then he's always a threat to get it going from. I've mentioned before, he's a pretty good three-point shooter and a good foul shooter. So if he sees the shots, he'll pay it off. If he doesn't, he probably won't. Can't trust him in a cash game with all the other viable options, but his ownership should be really low. So I think he's a guy that you could get into there as a low-owned, a little bit of a ceiling play. Bringing it back on Charlotte's side of the ball, I mean, the guy that you kind of want to look to in this spot is going to be Kemba Walker. Kemba is super cheap, only 7.6K on Draftkings. The problem is he is not playing well at all. His efficiency's been really down. I think he might be injured, but there's a ceiling here in this matchup, so I could see playing him in a cash game, or not in a cash game, but in a tournament. Can't trust him in cash games, but definitely a tournament play. And then otherwise, I'm not really too interested in Charlotte's guys. I think Cody Zeller and Nick Batum are interesting, but I mean, there's just so much value on the rest of the slate that I'm not really going to play those guys. So I think it's Wall or Beal. And then if you want to bring it back with Kemba, I can understand doing that, but I'm just not too interested in Charlotte's side. Next game we got to look at is going to be the Los Angeles Clippers on the road to face the Orlando Magic. The Clippers are 8-point favorites here. Totals 210.5. I'm going to stop this stream because now it's working again. This is so frustrating. But anyway, yeah, Clippers and Magic. Nick Vucevic has been ruled out. It sounded like Luc Richard Mbah a Moute was not going to play, but now he's probable to play, so that makes this game a little less interesting. Still pretty interested in this game because I think it's got sneaky shootout potential here. The Magic, without Nick Vucevic, over the last 2 games have posted an offensive and defensive rating over 120, which is pretty fantasy friendly. You normally wouldn't want to target this game, but I think there's a little bit of stackability with low ownership in this game. So I think it's a really, really strong tournament target here. We know where it's going to be with the Clippers. It's going to be Chris Paul and Blake Griffin. Blake Griffin posted a usage rate of 31 in the last game. I think he's pretty much a lock for over 30. Chris Paul is a little concerning because his usage can go anywhere from 20 to 30. He was only 20 in the last game. But if Orlando would manage to keep this game close, like CP3 could really, really pop off here. Austin Rivers is going to be back in this game. I'm not really interested in any of the Clippers. I mean, I could see there being some value in the ancillary guys like Jamal Crawford and Rivers, and Felton's back now, but I don't feel comfortable pegging it, and there's just so many other guys on the slate. It's pretty much Chris Paul or Blake Griffin here. I think they're reasonable cash targets because I'm kind of expecting Orlando to keep this game a little bit closer. They played really well against Denver and they won that game, but that wasn't surprising because Denver is terrible. But then they came back in the last game and played with incredible offensive efficiency against Atlanta, who was the number 2 rated defense in the league. So they're seeing another tough defense, but I mean, they just kind of torched a good defense in the last game. So I think that they could compete in this game, and I don't think people will really be on this game. It just makes more sense to go to all the other games on the slate. So I think this game should definitely be low owned, and if this trend that we see with Orlando, where they play really good offense and really terrible defense, continues, we could be looking at a ton of points. I think this is the one game that could possibly rival the Los Angeles and Brooklyn game for total points scored. I definitely think that's a better bet, probability wise. But I think this game has that kind of ceiling. So definitely a game I want to stack in some tournaments with like Blake and Fournier, or Blake, Chris Paul, and Fournier. But anyway, Orlando side of the ball. Last 2 games, it's been Serge Ibaka, 25.4% usage rate in 34 minutes. He's pretty expensive on DraftKings, 6.4K. Don't know that I want to pay that much for him, but I think everybody's going to feel that way, so you should be able to get really low ownership on Ibaka with maybe like a 50 DraftKings point ceiling here. I think he's probably going to give you at least 30. I could see playing him in a cash game. I mean, I'm not going to do it because there's other places I'm going, but if you really like that and want to go a little more balanced, I would totally understand that. I think it's a play, and I definitely think it's a strong tournament play, especially in a game stack of this game. Fournier is the second guy I'm looking to here. He is, I think, 5.7K on DraftKings, if I remember correctly. 5.8K. I mean, that's kind of a reasonable price to pay for him, where he's put up 38 and 41 DraftKings points over the last two matchups. I think he's going to see probably at least like 30 to 33 DraftKings points, and he's got ceiling for like 45. So I don't think he's a terrible play. I think he's a really strong tournament play, and I think he's actually a really, really strong play on FanDuel, where he's only, I think, like 5.5K or something, just really, really low with respect to his ownership and ceiling combo here. I mean, I really think he's a strong cash and or tournament play on FanDuel, and a guy that I really want to get into some stacks here with Chris Paul and Blake Griffin. And maybe even Ibaka. I think all four of those guys is a really strong stack here. Elfrid Payton absolutely blew it up in the last game. I had a little bit of him, but not enough. I cashed him the game before that, where I was expecting him to have the game that he had last night. He didn't, so that was kind of frustrating. But his price came up a little bit, 4.8K on DraftKings. Not sure what to think of him here. Like, I don't think he's going to replicate what he did in the last game against the Clippers. I certainly think it's possible, but if I had to guess, I think he's going to come in closer to like the 25-30 DraftKings point range than he is the 50 to 55. So I definitely think he's a tournament play. I think if you really want to use him in a cash game, you could do it. I'm not going to do it, but I mean, I understand the upside. Wanting to get a piece of that upside at only 4.8K, but like I said, I think he's probably going to come in closer to his lower range of outcomes. So I'm not really too interested in him, but I think he's playable at least in a game stack. Jeff Green has seen a 24.8% usage rate over the last two games. Only 3.9K on DraftKings, but like I'm probably going to get up to Caspi from there. I'm not going to play him. I don't think he makes much sense. And I'm not interested in Biyombo at all. The one thing I do want to mention is that Orlando, although they have posted really good offensive ratings, they've just been getting crushed on defense in these last two games, and they have like I can't even believe how low it is, rebounding rate of like 39, where they're 48% on the season. They're only 39 in the last two games, so I mean that's kind of concerning for their ability to compete in this game. But they haven't turned the ball over at all, which is kind of helping them stay in it as far as terms of possessions, and then their offensive efficiency is just really, really going through the roof. So I don't think it's like a locked and loaded play, but I think it's possible that this game offers some very serious under-owned value. Okay, sorry about that. Had to refresh the stream. It's not working for me per usual. All right, next game to take a look at. It's going to be the Raptors. Toronto Raptors on the road to face the Philadelphia 76ers. The Raptors are 8.5-point favorites. Total is 205 in this game. This game's another one that's kind of tough to peg. Okay, so Luc Richard Mbah a Moute is not playing. That just makes that game more attractive, I think, because elite lockdown defender Austin Rivers is going to start, and Rivers probably gets a bump up because he's probably going to play like 30 minutes in this game, and he might see like 25-ish DraftKings points. So I think he's in play. But yeah, back to Toronto and Philadelphia. I'm not too interested in this game. Toronto should run away with it, but Philadelphia has competed in some spots where it looks like they're not going to compete. So, I mean, I think they're at least mildly interesting for a game stack. I'm not too interested in anybody outside of Embiid, Ilyasova, or Sergio. I don't think any of them are cash plays. They're at best tournament plays in the stack here with guys from Toronto's side. I think Kyle Lowry is a pretty interesting play. I think he's got the easiest matchup. He's been playing with a lot of efficiency. He should give you like a 35 to 40 point floor and then a ceiling of like 60 if Philadelphia would manage to keep it close. So Lowry is definitely the guy that I'm looking at from Toronto's side. I think DeRozan's in play, but I like Lowry better for sure, points per dollar. DeMarre Carroll's going to play here. I'm just not really in this game. If I'm playing into this game, if I'm playing anybody from cash, it's going to be Lowry. And then I think, like I said, I think Embiid, Ilyasova, and Sergio are playable in tournaments, but I don't want any piece of them in cash. DeMar DeRozan is playable in a tournament. Don't think I'll play him in cash. I think I would go with Lowry. I guess you could look at like Terrence Ross, Corey Joseph, all these kind of secondary guys from Toronto if maybe they would blow them out. But I don't feel comfortable with any of these guys. It's Lowry for me or pretty much nothing else. I'm going to quickly move on to the next game, which is the Indiana Pacers traveling to visit the Miami Heat. Pacers are 1.5 point road favorites here. Totals 203.5. I think this game's pretty juicy. I think Justice Winslow has been reported as being back in this game. I don't know if he's been confirmed in. He's going to warm up with the intent to play, and it looks like if he's going to play, he's going to come off the bench. So not going to change too much of what I'm looking at here in this game. It's pretty much from the Heat side. I like Dragic and I like Whiteside. Dragic is posting an insane usage rate lately. He's been over 30 in all the last 3 games. He was 37.1% in the last game against Washington. Don't expect to see anything different here against Indiana. He's going to have the ball in his hands a ton. His price came down, I think, after he kind of exploded in the last game against the Wizards. Or no, his price went up $100. So certainly still a cash and/or tournament target here. Definitely a guy that I want to use with all the value here. It's pretty easy to get him in, and I would expect probably like 40-ish to maybe 50 to 55 DraftKings points here. So even if he comes in kind of closer to the lower range of his expected outcomes, I think he's going to be pretty valuable for you. And there's definitely some ceiling here in this game. I think this game could be close, down to the wire. He's obviously going to be the guy trying to either close it out or come back in this game. So really like Dragic in this spot. Really like Hassan Whiteside. Whiteside has kind of had a couple things go against him in the last couple games. He only played like 33 minutes in the last game against Washington. He got pushed off the floor for like 4 or 5 minutes. Didn't have a foul at all, but the Heat played small because the Wizards went to the Markieff at the 5 lineup for like 5 or 6 minutes in the fourth quarter, and they just played James Johnson at the 5 instead of Hassan Whiteside, so he kind of missed some points there. The game before that against Chicago, he only played 33 minutes, and it was a really tough matchup because he had foul trouble. Game against Cleveland, the game before, Cleveland's just really good, and they got blown out, so only played 28 minutes. Game before that against Atlanta, had to match up individually with Dwight Howard, saw 5 fouls, just didn't play well. I mean, the last time that we've seen him kind of be in a competitive game where he actually played legitimate minutes was against New York and Portland, and he put up 51 and 60 DraftKings points in that game, and that's more of what I'm expecting here. We've been targeting Indiana with big men all year long. They have a horrible rebounding rate at 47.7. Mention all the time that Miles Turner is not a good rebounder, does not like to get onto the glass. I certainly respect his athleticism, but like he's not a guy that like really likes to mix it up in the paint. So I think Whiteside definitely has a decided advantage over him on the glass. And if he would get into foul trouble, which he is certainly prone to do, Hassan could be out there against like Al Jefferson. There's nobody on the Indiana roster that is going to slow Hassan down. So if he can stay out of foul trouble and stay on the court for like 36 to 38 minutes in this game, he has got a really, really nice floor-ceiling combo. He's a guy that I'm really looking to work into my cash games because he's only 8.3K on DraftKings. I mean, I think he's a great play. Only problem is between like him and Brook Lopez and Costa Kufos, you can only play 2 of them. Really good day to play on Fantasy Aces where you can play all 3. But yeah, I think he's a really strong cash and/or tournament play. I think he's a good stack with Goran Dragic. Justice Winslow being back in this game kind of takes me off of any of the secondary guys. It's pretty much Dragic or Hassan for me, unless Winslow would be ruled out. And then I think you could maybe look at like James Johnson, Tyler Johnson, Josh Richardson. But I'm just not really interested in any of these guys with all the value that's on the slate. So it's Goran and Hassan in cash and/or tournaments, and I think they're a pretty good stack. I also like to bring it back on the other side. Like I said, I think there's going to be a lot of points and a lot of pace in this game, and I think it's going to stay pretty close. Paul George had a 27 usage rate in the last game. Saw that come down from 40 from the game before that against Portland, but that was because Indiana kind of blew out Charlotte in the last game. They were ahead by about 20, and he didn't really have to do anything down the stretch. If Miami can stay more competitive, and I definitely expect them to do that, I think Paul George could really trend back towards the ceiling. I don't think it's a bad matchup. A little concerned with the fact that Justice Winslow is going to be back and playing. But I think any trend down in efficiency that we see from Paul will probably be met with a trend up in volume. So I still think it's safe to project him for like 40 with a ceiling of like 50 to 55 here. And I think he'll probably come in at least in the middle, maybe towards the higher end of the range of outcomes. Definitely think he's a strong cash or tournament play in this spot. I think he's a really strong tournament stack with Goran Dragic because I think they could be kind of going like bucket for bucket here in the fourth quarter in the close game. So I like stacking those guys together. Teague kind of got off a little bit in the last game, but most of it was due to efficiency. He still only saw a 19.3% usage rate. I just don't really want to play Jeff Teague. I think there's better plays on the slate, but I totally understand playing him at only 6.4K on Draftkings. Rodney Stuckey saw a 29.7% usage rate in the last game. Again, I think that's more of a game flow kind of thing. I expect that to trend back down here. Miles Turner is interesting in tournament games because his usage has been pretty high here recently. He's trending up to like 22 to 23 with a C8 usage. He was 23 in the last game. If you can manage it here, I think it could give you like a 40 to 45 point DraftKings point game, which is certainly usable in a tournament. Don't think I'll have a lot of ownership. Again, kind of same thing. There's so many other good centers, people probably won't play him. So I definitely think he's at least a tournament target. But my main targets from Indiana, the main one's definitely going to be Paul George. Miles Turner's probably second, and then I guess Jeff Teague would be third. I'm not too interested in any of the other guys. I can't peg them, and there's more value elsewhere. So like those guys in a game stack. Really like Goran Dragic here, point per dollar. I think he's a really strong cash and or tournament play. Okay, so Jeremy Lin is questionable tonight. If he doesn't play, that's going to open up a lot of value with Brooklyn. Isaiah Whitehead, Sean Kilpatrick, probably the two biggest bumps without Lin. Kilpatrick probably gets himself into the cash game conversation if Lin doesn't play because his minutes and usage should trend up again towards like 25 usage and like 30-ish plus minutes. So I would definitely be interested in those guys if Lin doesn't play here. Okay, next game that we want to look at. This one's going to be pretty quick. The OKC Thunder on the road to visit the Jazz. 7.5 point favorites for the Jazz at home. Totals 199.5. I'm just totally off this game. There's not a single guy that I want to play in this game. I don't want to play Westbrook. Jazz are getting back Hood and Favors. I think they're an easy bet to blow out the Oklahoma City Thunder without Oladipo. We saw how they really struggled last night against Portland, and I think the Jazz are a better team, especially now that they're getting a little healthier than Portland is. So I don't want any piece of anybody on this game. So that's a pretty easy fade for me. On to the next game. We've got the Boston Celtics at the San Antonio Spurs. San Antonio Spurs are 5.5 point favorites here. Totals 194. Kawhi Leonard here in this game for me, I think is a pretty easy play. He's only 8.1K on DraftKings. He's only like 8.3 on FanDuel. I think he's like the easiest click of the night on FanDuel next to Costa Kufos. And like I said, there's just so much value. It's really easy to play him on DraftKings. His usage is going to be probably at least 30, maybe up to 35-ish. It's going to be kind of tough for the guards because Boston has, Bradley, Smart, all those guys. I know Jay Crowder's out there, and Kawhi's probably going to match up with these same guys, but Kawhi is kind of matchup proof for me. I don't really care who guards him. I think he's still going to be able to get his shots off, get to the rim, get fouled, et cetera, et cetera. And I think this game might actually be pretty close. LaMarcus Aldridge is out. So I think this is definitely a targetable game with Kawhi at least. I could see playing Pau Gasol, kind of the same thing. I'm definitely not going to play him in cash because there's way better center targets, but I definitely think he is a strong tournament target because we always like taking big guys like Pau against the Boston Celtics. He can really get over in the matchup. Horford's so small and kind of bad at the rim. So I don't mind Gasol as a tournament target. especially in a stack of the game. I mean, I could see playing Tony Parker just be okay. I don't really want to play him. It's pretty much Kawhi for me from this game. I don't think. I guess David Lee is definitely in play here. He's only 3.5K on DraftKings, and he's definitely going to get a bump without Marcus. Put up a 35-point game against Boston in only 17 minutes earlier in the season, so he could definitely see some efficiency in minutes, like close to 20 in this game. So I think he's a reasonable play. I mean, I could see playing him in a cash game if you really liked him. I probably won't do it, but maybe I need to think a little bit harder about it. If you want to do it, I'm not going to talk you off it. I don't think it's a bad play. I have Caspi right now, but could see getting off that and going like Kawhi and David Lee in this matchup. I think they're both pretty strong point per dollar plays. I don't know. All right. Yeah, this one's kind of for Boston's side of the ball, I'm pretty uninterested in anybody. Probably going to be Horford, if anyone. He's got a 24.1% usage rate, same as Avery Bradley over the last couple games without Isaiah Thomas. I think those guys are the two most playable guys. I'm not really interested in Kelly Olynyk, Terry Rozier, J. Crowder, or Marcus Smart. Just don't want to play any of them. I think there's better plays point per dollar on the slate. So those are pretty easy fades for me from this game. It's looking like Kawhi, and I'm kind of, now that I'm thinking about it more, I'm really starting to get onto David Lee here. So I think Kawhi and David Lee are pretty strong cash for tournament targets, and I need to make a note of the fact that David Lee is a strong play. Okay. Next game to take a look at. We got two more games to touch on here. First one's going to be Detroit Pistons at the Dallas Mavericks. Pistons are 5.5-point road favorites. Totals at 189. This is just a really unappealing fantasy game given the kind of layout of the slate. If I'm going to play anyone from Detroit's side of the ball, it's probably going to be Andre Drummond because he gets an awesome individual matchup with whoever Dallas runs out at center. Probably going to be Salah Majri and or Dwight Powell, and Drummond should wipe the floor with both of those guys. It's just a question of where are his minutes going to be. But if he plays like 36 minutes, I think he can give you like 60 DraftKings points, anywhere from like 40 to 60 DraftKings points. Not a guy I'm going to play in cash. I never play him in cash because I'm just never comfortable with his floor. But I do really like his upside in this matchup for a tournament play. And again, kind of same thing. Don't know where the ownership is going to be for centers. So I definitely think we could get him at a nice high ceiling, low owned, so definitely a good tournament play. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is supposed to be back in this game. Got like run out of the Philadelphia in the last game without him. So hopefully KCP back in the lineup. Not too much of this slow pace. I can't see any of these guys having like really strong fantasy games with respect to all the other guys on the slate. So I'm just not too interested in any of them. If I want anyone, it's going to be Drummond because I like the ceiling in this game. Bringing it back on the other side of the ball, Harrison Barnes, still interesting to me. Saw his usage trend down a little bit in the last game because they kind of ran they ran Denver off the court, beat him by 20, so he wasn't doing a whole lot. Dorian Finney-Smith, I think he's like Dorian Finney-Smith is a mildly interesting target again in this game. Probably gonna be, like, I don't think there's a chance that he scores 37.75 DraftKings points again in this matchup. But I do think there's a reasonable expectation. We know he's going to be out there. Take anywhere from 5 to 9 shots. Might be able to rebound a little bit. He's going to play some defense, and he's actually posted a couple of assists here recently. So I don't think he's the worst play at 3.8K. But like I said, I just kind of touched on David Lee, who I think might be a much better play than him. And you could just kind of switch Omri Caspi, get David Lee in there, and save $300 and probably get a little bit better ceiling. Bad play, I certainly think he's in play. If you like him, not too interested in Wes Matthews. I mean, I know that he's been really consistent here. He's getting up a ton of shots, but I don't really like targeting Detroit's defense They're actually the second most efficient defense on the season right now. So when you combine the pace, the matchup, I'm not too interested in Dallas's guys, but I think it's probably Barnes, Wes Matthews, and Dorian Finney-Smith are the strongest targets, and then I have really no interest in Darren Williams in this matchup. On to the last game, and probably one of the most games to get right when you're handicapping this slate for DFS purposes. This is going to be the Cleveland Cavaliers on the road to face the Memphis Grizzlies. Grizzlies are 7-point favorites. Total is 189. We have all of the Cleveland guys out here in this matchup. It's going to be really tough to peg here. Everybody's going to be playing J.R. Smith because he had such a great game last night. The problem I have with J.R. Smith is that I don't know. I mean, I'm sure the volume's going to be there in this game, but I really question his efficiency without having Kyrie, LeBron, and Kevin Love on the floor. I mean, they take so much defensive attention away from J.R. Smith, and now he's going to be the main offensive focal point. I don't see how he gets open. They should be double teaming him off of any pick and rolls. And Memphis is a really good defensive team. I think they're coached well. I like David Fizdale a lot as a coach. So I mean, I just kind of don't see it here for JR. Okay, we're back. Talking about J.R. Smith. The only way that I think he's a cash play is that if you're blocking everybody else, because I don't see the efficiency for him in this game. He's the kind of guy that can hit contested 23-foot jump shots, but I find it hard to bet on in this game. I know that he's a great tournament fade because he's going to be so super highly owned, and I really think there's a floor here. Like if Memphis would run away with this game, I think he could play like 22 minutes and score you like 12 fantasy points, and then just you would have a huge leg up because he's going to be so owned after the game that he put up last night at his price point and with all of these other three guys out. Like I said, I think you can get some leverage here because I don't know that those guys are the best plays. Because I think it's a little underrated how much attention that JR is going to see in this game. Like DeAndre Liggins, you don't have to guard him. Amon Shumpert, it's pretty much Shumpert and J.R. Smith are the only two guys that you can really play from Cleveland in the starting lineup. Like Tristan Thompson, great rebounder. I don't know that he's going to be able to get his offense going against Marc Gasol. JaMychal Green too. I mean, you kind of look up and down here, and I don't see any advantages at all for Cleveland. I think it's a legit possibility that they just get run out of the building here. Because Memphis is going to be fully healthy. They're trending up. They've been playing really strong defense here lately, and I think it's tough to project Cleveland for offensive efficiency. So I might just take the stand that I fully fade Cleveland guys because I don't like the floor, and I don't think the ceiling is as high as some people might think. I might full fade. Might not play them in cash or tournament games. I know I'm looking to get off of them in tournament games because I think there's so many leverage plays off of these guys. I think that Shumpert is probably the most playable because I think he projects to play the most minutes. JR is a little older and he's had knee trouble, so if this game gets out of hand, I think he could get pulled pretty quickly. I think Shumpert might be locked into like 30 plus minutes. He's got a 25.8% usage rate without the big three on the court. I think he probably is going to be the main ball handler for the first unit. I doubt people will play him. People are definitely going to be on JR over him because of what we saw last night. So I think he's a great pivot in that respect, and I also think he's probably projects better to score more fantasy points in this game. So I mean, I like Shumpert. Definitely like Shumpert over JR. I'm pretty interested in Kay Felder and Jordan McRae here because, like I said, it's tough to project blowouts in the NBA, but I just don't see it for Cleveland. But even if they do compete, I mean, I think Felder and McRae could both play like 20 to 25 minutes and see at least one DraftKings point per minute. McRae's got a 29.4% usage rate without the big three on the court. Felder's at 25.3. And if this game gets into garbage time, it's going to be those two guys kind of getting up and down the court, taking all the shots. So I think those guys are at the very least really good tournament pivots off of J.R. Smith. And I mean, I'm really interested in them. I've definitely run some lineups already with the two of them, and then all the really high price guys that you can get in on the slate. But I mean, I think the only argument for J.R. Smith as a cash play or a tournament play here is just the block, because he's going to be so owned. But I really like the fade. I just think it's going to be contested jumper after contested jumper. If they don't go in, he's not giving you much of anything. I just don't see it here. I think last night was the night to play him. If you didn't get in on him, I don't think it makes sense to chase the points here tonight. So I think it's kind of like Felder and McRae and Shumpert for me from Cleveland. JR if you want to block. I'm not really interested in Richard Jefferson. I'm not interested in Dunleavy. I'm definitely not interested in James Jones, Tristan Thompson. No way I'm playing him at center with all the other good center plays. So it's kind of where I'm at for Cleveland, Felder, McRae, and Shumpert. Memphis on the other side of the ball. Kind of tough to peg where these guys are going to be. I really, really want to play Marc Gasol, but I don't know if I can project Cleveland to keep it close enough. I think maybe if you do really want to play JR, you stack him up with Gasol and hope that JR scores 30 real points and keeps this game close, and then Gasol has to play 36 minutes and scores a bunch of points. But I think Gasol is a reasonable cash play just because he's going to see such a nice matchup. His usage is so high. It's been up closer to 30 in the last couple games, so I think he's a reasonable play. But there's just better centers, I think, that you can play tonight. I'd rather just get up to Whiteside. I think there's a better floor ceiling combo with Whiteside. I know I'm playing Costa Kufo's point per dollar over Marc Gasol. I think Brook Lopez might be a better play than Marc Gasol point per dollar, floor ceiling combo wise. So I get the Gasol play. I think he's in a nice spot, but with respect to his price, I'm not sure he's the best center play. I'm actually pretty interested in Andrew Harrison here. It looks like Wade Baldwin is falling out of the rotation. Tony Douglas is god awful. Tony Douglas needs to be cut. They should just cut him now. He's terrible. He's not good. They shouldn't give him minutes. He shouldn't touch the ball. He shouldn't be on the court. Andrew Harrison should be playing mid-30s minutes here. I could see Aaron Harrison giving you another anywhere from 25 to 35 point Draftkings game here. He needs 26 to get you there, and I think that's kind of what his floor is in this matchup. So I like Andrew Harrison a lot. I think he can give you defensive statistics, a couple rebounds, a couple assists, and I think he might be able to score a little bit in this matchup. So I think he's a reasonable cash play if you wanted to go there. I'm not right now, but I could see it, and I think he's actually a decent tournament play because I don't think anybody's going to play him. I like the individual matchup, so I like the kind of ownership ceiling combo here for Andrew Harrison. I'm kind of on him. JaMychal Green is sort of interesting. Don't love his price point. He's a little too expensive, but I think he projects to rebound pretty well in this game. I think you could definitely see double-digit rebounds. Did not shoot well last night. Shot 1 in 10, but should see a little softer defense here without the big three playing. I'm not going to play him in cash, but I think he's a tournament target. And then Tony Allen. Tony Allen's actually another thing that I didn't mention as another reason I'm not really into J.R. Smith. Tony Allen should be following him all around the court, and is probably going to make it tough for J.R. to get any. Even though J.R. hits more contested looks than he does open looks. So I don't know. That's the biggest deterrent. But I don't like not really a guy I play, but I guess he deserves mentioning in the spot. Play 25 to 5 Draftkings points, but I'm not gonna play him. So I think it's Gasol on Memphis' side of the ball, and I think JaMychal and Tony Allen are